He says that you got really, really mad about that, and that you told Mr. Trevino that you need to get your shit together and knock it out because you haven't done anything to plan for the wedding. You haven't gotten a tuxedo, and now your mom's going to be coming, and he needs to get this shit done. I'm an expert, right? I'm supposed to be one of the best, right?
Okay.
100% solvency rate in every homicide that I've ever investigated. 100%.
8 days before Laura Grillo was to marry her fiancé, John Makris, the Texas mother of 3 was shot to death in her own home. The number 1 suspect? John. But with CCTV footage at the time of the crime, he and his friends had a solid alibi. With no witnesses, no leads, no evidence, the Rowlett Police Department needed the best of the best to solve this case. They need a Texas Ranger.
Number one, let me tell you about me. I'm Jim Holland. I'm a Texas Ranger, but I'm not just a regular Texas Ranger. I get special cases. I don't work just regular murders. I don't do anything like that. All I work is murders, but primarily what I work is serial murders. I'm pretty good at what I'm doing. I'm really good at what I'm doing, or I wouldn't be doing this. When my phone rings, it's usually the governor.
Laura Grillo was described by loved ones as a quote-unquote ray of sunshine who always desired to do good in hopes of making this world a better place. Laura was affianced to a man named John Makris, with whom she shared a 7-year relationship. While they were together, they welcomed their now 4-year-old daughter and settled down in Rowlett, Texas, along with Laura's 2 other daughters from a different relationship. The couple was scheduled to tie the knot in November of 2015. For a brief moment, all Laura seemed to be familiar with was happiness, surrounded by the people she loved the most. However, that happiness was cut short all too soon when an unexpected tragedy befell Laura. A week before the date the couple was due to tie the knot, on the morning of November 13th, 2015, Laura was shot and killed in her own home. Upon arriving at the crime scene, law enforcement took note of several significant details. The house showed no signs of forced entry, nor was it vandalized or robbed. The sole anomaly was the discovery of the victim in the living room. These factors proved to the officers that this killing was no accident. Rather, the perpetrator's sole intention was to murder Laura. Now, typically in these scenarios, law enforcement's initial focus shifts to the closest people in the victim's life, such as a spouse or a partner. So, John was immediately brought into interrogation by the afternoon of that same day. During the interrogation, John was asked about his whereabouts on the fateful day, to which he attested that he had been to some home improvement stores in Dallas, Texas. This was confirmed by CCTV footage of the stores he visited. So, with no concrete evidence to make an arrest, John was released following this interrogation. However, as the investigation progressed, law enforcement learned several new facts about John. He possessed a history of controlling behavior towards Laura and had treated her poorly, even in public settings. The detectives also discovered that John harbored a desire to end the relationship, but refrained from doing so out of fear of losing custody of his daughter. Soon enough, detectives stumbled upon a crucial revelation. John had met with 2 co-workers identified as James Vaida and Emmanuel Jesus Trevino. Despite Jesus having worked with John for only 3 weeks, he had quickly become John's right-hand man. When both James and Jesus were brought in for interrogation, they presented a consistent story in which neither of them had any sort of involvement with this heinous crime. Jesus, in particular, went the extra mile to make sure detectives believed their narrative, appearing laid back and showing no signs of fear in his demeanor. Similar to John, both his workers were also questioned about their whereabouts on the fateful morning of November 13th. Jesus claimed that he had been in Dallas the entire morning when Laura was killed. However, this alibi was soon debunked by Jesus' cell phone records. At approximately 8:26 in the morning, Jesus' phone pinged at a cell tower just 1 mile away from Laura's residence. Interestingly, this is also the time Laura is presumed to have been killed. With this crucial piece of information, the investigators took swift action, executing a search warrant to obtain Jesus' latest cell phone records. Almost 6 months had flown by, and James Aida and Jesus were arrested and booked into jail. However, the turning point in the case arrived in June of 2016, when James, who was arrested on unrelated drug charges, was brought back into the interrogation room, where he did the unexpected.
I tend not to ask a bunch of questions because I'm a good investigator, so I can go through, forensics and everything nowadays is pretty easy. People aren't that smart. They watch CSI and they think they're smart, but they're really not that smart. Everyone makes mistakes. Okay. Well, I tell my son, when you go to bed at night, you should be able to put your head down and you should be able to go to sleep. Mm-hmm. In other words, you shouldn't be thinking about the things that you did wrong or the bad choices that you made that day or anything like that. You should go to bed with a free conscience, with no worries. And so people ask me, well, how do you sleep? Well, I sleep great because I go home and I put my head down and I have a free conscience and I try to lead a good life. Well, how do you sleep with these people on death row? Well, I gave them choices, and the reason that they're there is because they chose to be there. And everything in life, there's options. There's never just one straight path. There's always multiple options. And what I find it best is to explain things to people and then kind of lay out what the options are and then let them make a choice. And then whatever their choice is, hey, I'm good with that. And sometimes people make bad choices, and sometimes those bad choices, at the end of the day, cost them their lives because they go to death row, they get executed, or they sit in a 10 by 10 room for the next 12 years and then they get executed. But that's a choice that they made. Right. Other people recognize that they make mistakes. All right? And when someone makes a mistake, what's the difference between a good person and a bad person?
No, what's wrong, what's right.
A lot of people know what's wrong and what's right.
The detective is gradually building up to convey a message to James. Even if he did something wrong, confessing and telling the truth can lead to a better life. Now, it is a matter of whether James will accept the detective's message and choose to confess.
People go do bad shit that they know is wrong, but they still do it. Do you think Mother Teresa ever made a mistake?
Yeah.
Okay, what about the Pope? Right? Part Catholic. Do you think the Pope makes mistakes?
That's the hard one, the Pope.
He grew up. He was 5 at one time, right? You don't think he ever stole a lollipop or did anything like that? Huh? You think he's always out there taking care of the poor and the needy? Come on, man. Everyone's in 7th grade. Everyone's in 8th grade. Everyone's 5 years old. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes.
They don't know better.
Okay. Well, this is the difference between a good person and a bad person. A good person, like Mother Teresa, she makes a mistake, and the Pope makes a mistake, and I make mistakes, and you make mistakes, okay? But good people say that they're sorry for the mistakes that they made. They make amends, and they pray, and they go down the road. Mm-hmm. All right? A bad person, he makes a mistake. He just keeps walking. He never says, I'm sorry. He never feels bad about it. He never prays for forgiveness. He never asks for redemption. And none of those things ever happen. He just keeps walking down the road because he's a bad person. In Christianity, and why I talk about this, is because it's important to you and your future. All right. What's the number one rule in Christianity? You got to spread the gospel. You have to tell everyone about God, and you've got to bring them into the church. You got to make them aware of it, right? That's number one. Okay. What's number two? You have to forgive. Because the world is full of sinners, and the church is supposed to bring in sinners, and they're supposed to help them and pray for them and lead them to a path of redemption and help them to be good Christians, right? That's number two. Well, why is that important? And two is probably the most important thing in your life right now. Because judges, district attorneys,
you hungry?
Juries, grand juries, all these different people are made up of Christians, right? And those are the people who judge us in our society today. And what is the one thing that those people are looking for? They know that the people that appear in front of them did something wrong, they did something bad, right? But what do they want to hear? I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I'm begging for your forgiveness. And what happens to those people? Those people don't end up on death row, okay? They just don't, because everyone makes mistakes, and it's the job of every Christian to forgive. And your district attorney, and your district judge, and your juries, and your grand juries, they're all made up of Christians, right? And it's their nature. They have to forgive. And so, in doing this job for 23, 24 years, I've seen it. I've seen people who just never say that they made a mistake. They never beg for forgiveness. They never ask for forgiveness. They never say that they're sorry. And those are the people that end up way down there. Okay, and I'm telling you that because that's important to you as we move forward, because today you will have choices, all right? And that's why I want to want to kind of lay that out, because you're steering the boat in your life right now, and probably the most important decisions that you're ever going to make in your life, you're going to make today. As a matter of fact, I pretty much promise you that you're going to make those decisions today, all right? But I want to explain what's out there and why I'm saying all these goofy things to you. You wondering? You know where I'm going with this? Okay.
Not really.
Your boy Jesus, you think he's a brain surgeon, or you think he's a dumbass?
Dumbass.
He is. So what are you afraid of him?
No.
I mean, tell me about what you know about him.
Pothead.
Yeah, what else? Mr. Gangbanger, Mr. What is it, Los Mesicales, Mr. Tough Guy, Hitman, all of those shit?
Well, I didn't learn about his tattoo on his head until I was in ISF.
Yeah. And what's that mean to you?
Rowlett told me he was in prison.
Yeah.
Didn't know that. And they told me, I figured out the tattoo on his head that was supposedly Mexican Mafia or some little thing.
Yeah, whatever. And you believe that? You think that's legit? You think he's this big player? Or you think he's a stooge?
That's not cool.
Well, I mean, but what do you think of him? You think he's this legitimate badass? You think he's just kind of a joker?
James is asked 2 times if he has any fear of Jesus. For the detective, Jesus is nothing more than a spineless individual, as evidenced by derogatory terms like dumbass and joker being used to refer to him. So, James's reluctance to speak against him raises the question for the detective whether he's intimidated by Jesus. However, it's only a matter of time before James decides to prove the detective wrong.
I want to throw some things out here. Do you know this lady?
No.
Okay. I'm going to show you some pictures. Does that guy look familiar to you? You ever seen your boy with a gun?
No.
Never? Never in his backpack? Hey, and this is the deal, okay? If I'm going to ask you something and you don't want to answer it, I would rather you respect me and just say, hey, I don't want to answer that question, as opposed to not be honest with me, okay? Because for me, respect is huge. And what I'm going to do today is afford you some opportunities to help you, okay? And you don't have to believe me. And if I were you, I wouldn't, all right? Because I'm a cop. And you're sitting there in black and white, and you're going back to a jail cell. I'm this police officer, right? Probably the last person you should trust in the world is me. Would you agree with that?
No.
No. You don't have to trust me, all right? Okay. All I want you to do is listen to what I'm saying. And you can draw your own conclusions, and you can make your own decisions based on that. It's not about trust. It's about logic, all right?
All right.
What do you know about that?
It belongs to Jesus, and it was in my motel room.
Okay. And why was it in your motel room?
Because we cleaned out the trunk of his car.
When did you clean out the trunk of his car?
A long time before they came and searched my room, which I allowed them to search willingly.
Where was it at in the room?
Underneath the bed.
Okay.
When I was down there, I wasn't sure.
Why was it under the bed?
Did you see the pictures in my room? Yes.
Okay. Anything else important about that backpack?
It's not my stuff, so I don't go through people's stuff like that.
Why did they leave it there?
Like I said, we were cleaning up the trunk of his car. I had his speaker box. I had some granite from a job they had, and he left that there.
Okay.
You leave it next to the bed, times go by, and I didn't even know it was there until they were moving everything around, and they looked down there, I got on the ground and pulled it out and gave it to them.
I'm going to come back to this, and I'm going to come back to some of the testing and everything that was done on the interior of the bag and what was found. Do you know her?
No,
Okay.
what's her name?
Doesn't mean anything to you. No. You don't know that gun. Never seen that gun before. Okay. So the interesting thing about is that she was dating Mr. Jesus, okay? And that picture is actually taken in a place that Jesus lived, and that blanket is still up in the background, and the girl has since moved off to Colorado. You know that spot?
I thought he was going out Rosalinda.
Oh, this is a little bit before that. Let's go back almost a year. How long have you known Jesus?
I've known him for probably about 13 years, but I haven't had contact with him for about...
When did y'all start hanging out again?
About a week before I started working with him.
So, prior to November of 2015, when was the last time you saw him?
The day that Rowlett called me in the town to talk to me, I got out and he contacted me and asked me what was going on, and I told him I don't know much. Like, they just asked me a bunch of questions. He took me to a lawyer to make sure my probation doesn't get violated.
Who took you there?
Jesus.
Okay. But prior to the murder, you start working for him about a week before the murder.
3 weeks.
Okay. And before those 3 weeks, when was the last time you saw him? I mean,
You're talking about it.
okay, so you haven't seen this guy for years, and he pops back in your life, and you're hanging with him for 3 months, and all of a sudden there's a dead chick.
Yeah.
Long story short, right?
Pretty much. And
Okay.
can you bring me some warm water or something? Because I am cold, man.
Is anybody getting warm water? Thank you. So, haven't seen him for a couple of years, pops back into your life, gets you a job, you're working together for 3 weeks, and bada bing, bada boom, there's a dead body.
Yeah.
What does he ever say to you about the body afterwards? Yeah. Oh, yeah, is that okay, or?
Yeah, that's fine. Unless, if I get some, I'll drink that, but if I get like some warm water from this faucet, I'm cold. That's the only thing.
That's probably warm.
Yeah, all right. So,
It's cold.
so what's he ever say to you afterwards about it?
Well, what he was telling me is that, he was sad about it. He was really close to her.
Mm-hmm.
They got a long grade. And he was just trying to figure out how to comfort John with everything that was going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Mm-hmm.
But little by little, as the investigation went on, they were really told me not to talk to John, and then they told me not to talk to Sue, so contact really started to break off.
Okay, would it surprise you to know that this young lady told us about 6 months prior to the murder that Jesus talked to her about how he was going to get paid to commit a murder. He was going to kill his boss's wife for, I think it was $9,000 or $4,000. It changes the dollar amount. 6 months before. Would it surprise you that she said that? She doesn't know names. She doesn't know who the guy's name is or anything, but she is dating him. They're having sexual relations and all this other stuff. And he makes a statement to her that he's going to come into some money because he's fixing to kill his boss's wife. Does it surprise you that she would say this? Does it surprise you that this is Jesus's gun, a 40 caliber Springfield XD? So 6 months before, he goes to her and he says, I'm fixing to get a bunch of money. I'm fixing to kill my boss's wife because he wants custody of the kids and he doesn't want to pay her any money down the road or child support or anything like that. 6 months prior to the murder. Now, when do we find this out? Well, we find this out after the murder, right? Because she comes forward afterwards when she sees it. Would you believe her? I mean, if you're me, would you believe her?
That's it, dang.
She could be some jilted ex-lover, right? I mean, hell, look at her. She's this gangbanger type. Look at, she's wearing a mask. She's got a gun, right? All that stuff going on, right? Would you believe her?
I mean, that's a lot to make up.
It is.
And especially what's going on, I mean...
Kind of falls into line a little bit.
Yeah.
So would you believe her?
Considering the facts that I've heard so far, it kind of goes hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what she's saying and what Roulette's been telling me, I mean, it sounds like what they were coming on to and what she says kind of matches up.
This is brain surgery, right? Because this guy's really smart. So since we're dealing with girls, let's just keep dealing with girls. You know this young lady?
No.
No clue. Guess who she dated?
Jesus.
Yep. Guess what Jesus told her over a year before the murder? Guess.
Same thing.
Jesus tells her a year before the murder that he's fixing to come into a bunch of money because he's fixing to kill his boss's wife so his boss can keep custody of the children a year before. Now, bullshit, right? Would you believe that? 2 jilted ex-lovers, right? Get this shit. She's so freaked out by it, guess what she does? Calls Dallas Police Department and reports it over a year before the murder. Gives Jesus' name, says, I don't know the boss's name, but I know that he says he's getting paid $4,000 to kill her. So so he gets custody of the kids. A year, recorded telephone call a year in advance. You think Jesus is a brain surgeon? Tell me he's not the dumbest son of a bitch you ever heard of in your entire life. 2 different people.
Already, 2 individuals had confessed to Jesus' involvement in the murder. However, James remains unaware that more revelations are forthcoming, all to corner him to confess.
You know this joker? I'm going to show you all this stuff just because I don't want you to think that I'm blowing smoke or I'm lying or anything like that. David Arredondo, Arredondo, David.
That's supposedly his brother, right?
Is it?
I've only met one of his brothers, and this was when we were all young in high school.
Mm-hmm.
The name of David sounds familiar. I think David told me about that about storage or something. Am I right or wrong?
You're right, it's his brother.
Okay.
So guess what he said? Surely his brother wouldn't give him up, right?
This is a big thing. It's not.
You think brother wants to go back to prison?
No.
You think brother's got a long history? He approached him about being a driver on the deal because he wanted to take 2 different vehicles and he needed 2 cars, but he didn't use them. And guess who got mad? Because they didn't get paid. Why? Because David said, if the kids are there, I'm going to kill the kids too. Yep, and guess what? Our boy, right? He knows David, and David's a crazy son of a bitch, and he knows that David would kill the kids, and he knows he's not going to get any money if he kills the kids, right? Instead, he's probably going to have John coming after his ass. So, cuts him out. Statement saying that. Several months in advance, he starts talking to him about it. He uses the name John, and he uses the name Laura, because guess who knows John? Homie.
No idea.
Guess what he said? See, I took little notes. About a week before he starts freaking out, right? And he's freaking out because he's been out of trouble for a while, but he knew your boy, right? And he's calling him, and he's desperately telling him that he needs him to drive for a job. Guess what that job is? Guess what the job is?
Same thing has been
killing his boss's wife. Now, the dollar amount changes, and the amount of payment changes, and everything like that, but it's all the same thing. He needs someone to drive him there. Guess who that is? You know him?
no.
Another buddy. What do you call him Jesus, or what do you call him?
Yeah, Jesus.
Okay. So guess what he does with him several weeks in advance? He approaches him and offers him $4,000 to drive a car so he can do what? Kill his boss's wife so his boss can have custody of the children. What do you think about that shit?
Wow.
Do you think that these people just don't like him? Because, by the way, these people don't know each other. You know him?
Nope.
Guess what his story was?
Same thing.
About a month before the murder, someone needed a driver and got offered $2,000. Guess what to do?
Same thing.
Kill his boss's wife so he could get custody of the children. Gets us to there. Gets us to there. Gets us to there. And guess who takes a picture, goes into the funeral home, right, before his wife is embalmed, or fiance, if you want to call her that. Grabs, she's dead, right? She's had an autopsy, she's been cut open, all that other stuff. He undoes the bag because he wants to see his wife one last time, and there's witnesses there to this, and guess what he does? He grabs her breasts and said, ooh, I wanted to grab those titties one last time, bitch. And then he takes a picture of her dead and keeps it as a memento on his phone so he can remember the fact that he had her killed. So all this because of this. And that's just the start. So let me ask you this question. What do you think?
Sound like he's doing some shit.
So how many people is that? Like 5? And we've got a documented report, a 911 call a year in advance. Now, you know, law enforcement gets a little mud on their face on that one because if they do anything with it, it goes to DPS, Criminal Intelligence Division, and they write a report about it, they do a background. But honestly, they got other stuff going on. They got terrorism, they got serial killers, they got all kinds of shit. And this is kind of normal stuff. You know, you get phone calls, but guess what?
This is Texas. All you need is hearsay.
Guess what? In that phone call, she name's Laura, right? She name's John because she knows him because why? She's been over to the house before. Okay, so
I understand that. Can you move this one?
By presenting this detailed information about John, the detective attempts to show James Johns' utter lack of remorse towards murdering his wife. Furthermore, James's obvious discomfort at the sight of blood may either be genuine or an act. These factors contribute to James's vulnerability, which, when pushed further, will only prompt him to crack and confess.
well, I think it would be better to.
After my dad was diagnosed with real severe, I've seen him cough up a lot of blood, and I don't like seeing the blood.
And that's important to me, all right, because then I'm going to go back to that. So based on all this stuff, right now and right here, do you think that there's a case against Jesus?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me throw another thing at you. Okay. Did you know that he had an app on his phone that recorded all the phone calls?
Yeah.
You think that's a good idea or a bad idea?
That was him. And
Did he ever say why?
for the job, when he talks to his customers,
So when you talked to him, did you know you're being recorded? Or did you think that was an app that he could turn on and off?
I never considered it.
Did you know that that app backs up to a cloud? You know what that means? You know how you back up your iPhone? You know how, in case you lose it? And there's a cloud, right? And it's sitting there. And all that stuff that's on your iPhone, you can trash it, you can light it on fire, you can do whatever, but it's sitting there. He claims that she's screwing around and doing all this other stuff. It's all bullshit. He was paranoid. He was going through her emails and her cell phones and wouldn't allow her to talk to the neighbors. You know, people like that. People who won't let their girlfriend talk to anyone that was paranoid that she's cheating on them or screwing around. But she wasn't doing any of that. He was. He was out there doing a little bunch of different chicks. He could have stepped away from the deal. He didn't have to marry her. Custody over what? One kid? You want him raising those kids? How do you think they turn out? Their dad had their mother murdered in their house. You don't want that. That's not right. I don't mean to push you, but I want a little bit of a crush because I need to go arrest this guy. That's where I'm leaving from here. So, throw it out there. Let's see what we can do. When does he contact you first?
my name is James Villada.
Hmm?
My name is James Villada, and I tell you forth and honestly,
It's your choice.
when this
what?
you're gonna go, I'm going all my faithfulness.
I'm sitting here, all right, and I told you I'm not lying to you, I'm not blowing smoke, and I've been honest, all right, and I'm here to be your friend right now. All right. Details, and you want all the gory details of how Jesus did it, or did she say anything, or I mean, what was he saying? What was he asking?
Just everybody keep quiet, shut up.
All right, so just tell me, don't talk to the cops, don't say shit. Okay.
Just shut up. Shut up. Talk about anything, don't say anything. And I'll just
Tell me, and this is the stuff that helps you, okay? Understand that. I'm looking for things that help you. The conversation that happens in that room helps you. You know, specifically, what does John say? What does Jesus say? What are they saying back and forth? Remember anything specifically that he said?
this is the time we have to be quiet.
Okay.
And that's the most thing at that time. Keep quiet, stick to you know, and don't say anything. They don't have anything. We're good.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, I'm just like, okay, yeah, all right, and that's all they should keep repeating to me.
Right. Just shut up. Keep your mouth shut.
I'm like, yeah, I'm operational. I'm not trying to get any deep shit.
Were they threatening you and all, or just shut up, or they say, man, don't talk or else?
I got that vibe from Jesus. Because honestly, after knowing he did there's no telling what he can do.
Mm-hmm.
And that conversation with John and him and there, he's not so much detail here.
Right. But it's pretty obvious that John ordered it.
Yeah.
And John wants you to keep your mouth shut.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's what they just keep going over and over. After that, that's when I get more of a grasp of how bad Jesus is.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's just like a comment that I looked at and I was like, what the hell? Like, whoa, really? Because what his comment was that, don't worry, James, because John knows better than the same thing. He knows what I can do.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't catch when he was trying to throw a hint my way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So after he comes out of the house, you don't go in the house with him, or you do go in the house with him? Okay, where are you waiting at?
The next block up.
Okay. And when he gets back in the car, what does he say to you?
That's right.
Okay. Did he give you any details? Did you talk about it at all? Say it's done, or she cried, or begged for her life, or was he joking about it? Was he bragging, or was he freaked out?
He said, not then. He didn't say nothing. Just, let's go.
Okay.
Yeah. And after we start heading to Home Depot, that's when he starts talking.
Mm-hmm.
I scared her. She actually tried to run. And that's what he said. Yeah, he shot her.
Did you say how he did it, or
He just shot her in the head.
mm-hmm.
That's the major detail.
When he came out, did he have any blood or anything on him, or he have his gloves and his booties and all that shit, or
Just his gloves.
okay? Did he go in with the backpack, or
No.
all right? What about the gun?
He had it, but it wasn't out,
Mm-hmm.
He gets in, he throws it in the backpack. There's no smell, no nothing. So again, I'm just thinking, he's shooting the shit out of me.
So you never hear anything, you never smell anything, but it's the morning that she dies.
Yes.
Yeah. What time were you there, approximately?
I can't tell you that 100%.
Okay.
I wasn't watching the clock.
Where do you go after you leave there?
We go back to the motel, and then we go to Home Depot.
What's he do at the hotel?
He goes and takes a shit in the restroom, and then he does some cocaine. He waits a little bit, and then we leave.
What's he do with the gun?
He took it apart.
Okay, and then what?
He got rid of it
Where?
in the house.
At the motel?
No,
Where at?
at the gas station up the street.
What's the name of the gas station?
I don't know. It's a little tiny gas station.
So he takes part of the hotel and throws it in the dumpster at the gas station. Then you all go to Home Depot.
Yes.
Okay, and what's he saying on the ride to Home Depot?
That's what he tells me about. She, I can't believe we're good, that the one and then things gonna be a lot better. He just smiling and giggling the whole time. He's like, yeah, man, she tried to run. Yesterday, after me not talking for a while, he's smiling, but man, let's go to work. And turns on the music, start to sing, jamming out, all the way there. So they pull up, I get out the car and get right to work.
Finally, James revealed what occurred on the fateful day when Laura's life was wrongfully ended. He revealed that it was Jesus who pulled the trigger and killed Laura, who was fighting for her life even in her last moments. As he recounts the story, he can be seen hesitating between sentences. This is not unusual, as James probably realized the severity of the crime and felt remorseful, while still worrying about how much trouble he could get into. However, James did not need to worry as much as Jesus and the real culprit, John. Soon after, John was arrested with credible reason and brought in for questioning.
Where are you from in Greece?
I'm from Sparta.
Sparta. Okay. Sparta. I had a college roommate who was from Greece. He was from Athens. He was a swimmer at University of Rowlett. I spent 3 summers in the islands. Ios, Santorini, Pyros, Crete, Mykonos. I'm trying to think. Pretty much anywhere out there I've been. You spend any time in the islands?
No, when I go home, back home, I usually stay home.
Yeah. How's Sparta? Nice or not?
It's pretty nice.
I spent 3 summers in the islands, and I've never been on the mainland. And everyone I know who's Greek keeps telling me, well, you're messing up, you need to go to the mainland. But, man, the islands are just, I like the islands.
Very nice.
Yeah. Probably the greatest meal I've ever had in my entire life was on Santorini. Just unbelievable. But I'm going, I was there 25 years ago, probably the last time. So I started going.
A lot of things have changed.
Well, I heard, because then the drachma was worth, was like $3 million to $1 or something. So.
No, it was never like that.
So what? 3,000? What would it be? It was something crazy.
No, it was like about 300 drachmas was about $1. But before they changed to euro.
25 years ago.
Oh, I don't know about 25 years ago.
When I went, I know the economy, the dollar was crazy. And it was so cheap. I mean, I could go there and have breakfast, lunch, dinner, and get a hotel for, it was probably like $5.
Well, 25 years ago, yeah.
It was very nice. And the swordfish and the lamb was pretty incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very good. Love the Greek kitchen. Open in, walk up, see what everyone's cooking, what there is, pick it out.
The detective initiates by attempting to establish a friendly rapport with John. He brings up his trip to Greece as a means to create a sense of familiarity, hoping that John will feel more at ease with him.
I'm kind of a stickler on things, so let me go through again. You steer the boat. You know what that means? You're the captain of the ship. So nothing happens in this room that you don't want to happen. You don't want to talk to me. You don't want to answer questions. And that's cool. All you got to do is say it, and we're done, and you go back. But I figured I would take this opportunity to at least kind of explain to you what's going on. And I figured you would probably have questions about what's going on. I'm kind of a pretty straightforward guy. I just kind of throw stuff out there. All right, so I just kind of wrap through it, and if I lose you or anything, then just stop me and ask a question. If you want clarification on anything, then all you can do is ask me. Okay, pretty straightforward. I'm not gonna lie to you or blow smoke or anything like that. Cool. All right. Number one, let me tell you about me. I'm Jim Holland. I'm a Texas Ranger, but I'm not just a regular Texas Ranger. Do you know what Rangers do?
Not really.
Okay, you met a Ranger in this case already.
Yeah, somebody talked to me at the Rowlett PD.
Right, a younger guy. So I'm what they call a UCIT Ranger. So there's about 120 Rangers in the state of Texas, okay? They do a bunch of different things, from murders to homicide to public corruption, you name it, and they do it. All right? There's 8 guys called UCIT Rangers. Okay?
What?
UCIT, U-C-I-T.
Okay.
Unsolved Crime Investigative Team. So of all the 120 Rangers, if you get picked to be one of these 8 dudes, then you must be pretty good. No one who's young ever gets picked. No one who's bad ever gets picked. Only people that are exemplary in what they do and have a lot of success. So I'm fortunate, I guess, or unfortunate, depending on how you look at it, because I get a bunch more work to do that, which means I've been a ranger for a really long time. I've been doing this stuff for about 23, 24 years, and I'm pretty good at what I'm doing. I'm really good at what I'm doing, or I wouldn't be doing this.
The detective directly informs John of his investigative skills, indicating that John won't be able to easily evade consequences. This straightforward approach is intended to instill a sense of fear, prompting John to speak the truth. However, the detective is soon to discover that this tactic may not be the most effective with John.
No. Sometimes it's hard to make a decision. Her.
What's your name? I cannot really see your face. Still, I need to see your face. Or your name. Janet? Yeah, I know about Janet.
Yep. So this is the deal. When this murder goes down, Laura, your wife, fiance, sorry. A couple months later, Janet is getting interviewed and questioned and everything like that, and she comes forward. Actually, they approach her after they find this on a webpage, and this is her with a gun, which is a .40 caliber Springfield XD. The bullet that killed your wife was a .40 caliber weapon. Okay, this is Jesus's apartment, or where he was staying with the SpongeBob stuff. We went back and took some pictures. So she's kind of hanging out there with the stuff on the internet. So Rowlett, I'll give them their kudos when they deserve it. They go and they find her, and I have since gone back and interviewed her and spoken with her. And 6 months ago, 6 months before your wife was murdered, she claims, all right, I'm just throwing that as a claim. She comes forward and says that she was talking to Jesus, and that Jesus says that you offered to pay him money to kill Laura. And I think it was 4,000 or 9,000. The number amount's all over from 9 to 15,000 or something. But she says this, and she says that Jesus not only told her that you hired him to kill your wife because you didn't want to get married and you wanted custody of the children. That's what she says. Come on, she's just some kind of gangbanger chick, right? Look at her. Do we believe this shit? Do you think she's credible? Oh, come on. You wouldn't listen to that, would you?
The detective's comments about not considering the witness as a credible source of information are simply to provoke a reaction out of John. He even pauses after the first time he states those comments to see if John would say something, but John does not, probably guessing what the detective's intentions were.
But this girl says that Jesus told her that he'd been hired by you to kill your wife, and was going to be paid X amount of dollars. I mean, I thought that was kind of bullshit. And then they show me these pictures. I'm like, all right. So you know what? I'm going to fly to Colorado, and I'm going to go interview her myself. And I'm going to give her a polygraph. And you know what she told me? I believe her. And she passed the polygraph. But look at her. Would you? So what? Right?
Hold on. Backtrack.
Mm-hmm.
You said, say to me again, what did you say? You know what did she told me? I didn't understand what you just said.
So I didn't believe this. I thought, well, she's probably not credible. So I went to Colorado and I interviewed her, and I'm an expert, right? I'm supposed to be one of the best, right?
Okay.
100% solvency rate in every homicide that I've ever investigated. 100%. That's why I got the job that I have, right?
I understand.
So I sit down and I interview her. And there's no indications of deception. She's telling the truth.
There's no indication for what?
No indications of deception. She is
Deception. Okay.
She's not lying. She's telling the truth. I'm convinced of that, just in case I give her a polygraph. And she passes that. Okay.
When you say she passes that, what do you mean? I'm not.
I mean, she was asked those questions when she was hooked up to a machine, And she gave the same answers, and the polygraph showed that she was telling the truth. Now, I don't really give a shit what the polygraph says, other than the fact it's just something else to prove up, right? Shows that she's being credible. Maybe people think I'm an idiot. I don't know what I'm doing. They don't really think that, but sometimes I like to imagine that, right? All right. So, but you wouldn't think much about that, about this girl jumping out there, and maybe Jesus runs his mouth or something.
Well,
But it's,
no, but she had issues with him, and
yeah, it's not credible, right? I mean, you wouldn't buy that shit, would you?
as I said,
I wouldn't buy it. Doesn't mean anything, right? So then we go back. I come up with big girl. So get this shit. A year ago, she calls. It's not Dallas Police Department. Well, let me go back to that. We interview her. She steps forward and she says that a year ago, while she was involved with Jesus, she said that Jesus told her that you were going to pay Jesus $9,000 for killing your wife because you wanted to keep custody of the kids.
Right off the bat, without even being prompted, John immediately jumps into a defensive stance. This is evidently due to his awareness of his own guilt, and he could sense what the detective was building up to. However, John is soon to realize that his defensive statement is not going to be of much use.
I'm just telling you what they're saying. I'm not here asking you questions. I just want to tell you what's out there. You should know what's out there, right? I mean, you want to know, don't you?
I mean,
You're under arrest.
I guess you're going to tell my lawyer, so it doesn't make any difference, right?
Yeah, you can tell them too. You can leave, you can do whatever. I'm just trying to explain it to you. If you want to hear it, then I will. If you want to leave, then let me know and we'll bring someone. So I would want to know. If I was accused of something, I would want to know. I would want to know what's out there. I'm the guy to tell you. So she says that a year ago, Jesus told her that he was going to get paid $9,000 to kill your wife because you wanted to keep the children and you didn't want to get married. Or you just wanted to keep the kids. And she goes into a little bit of detail about what he was planning to do and why it was going to happen. But, so you got another chick, right? She's probably some gangbanger. She's dating Jesus, right? You think she's credible?
Well, Jesus was doing a lot of chicks. So.
Right. So he's just running his mouth, right? I mean, she's probably just making shit up. She's coming forward after the fact. She wants to be famous. She wants to be on Entertainment Tonight, right?
Yes.
Okay. Kind of maybe. But the problem is she says, no, I'm not making this up. And no, I believed it. And yes, it happened. And I'm so sure of this that I called up the Dallas Police Department. And I talked to a detective and I gave him all the information. When? A year before the murder. Bullshit. No, I did. I called him. I told him every single thing. I told him what I knew. I gave him John's name. I gave him the wife's name. I gave him all of Jesus' information, what he drives, about the gun, everything. I told him everything. I said, okay, well, let us look for that report. We don't find it. There's no report. She never called Dallas PD. But guess what? A day later, they find the report. Not only did she call them, and not only did they take a report, but the whole thing was recorded, right? And then they handed off to a Department of Public Safety, State Police, CID agent who works intelligence hits. And he starts looking at it. I don't know, his wife got sick and his mom died. And kids had scarlet fever. For whatever reason, he didn't really do shit with it other than open the file, ran your name, runs your wife's name, pulls up your house on Google Maps, and runs Jesus. A year before your wife dies. Now, there's two people that are saying the exact same thing. One of them is memorialized the year before.
Is what?
It's recorded.
Okay.
There's a record. There's reports. There's documents. It's not made up. It's not bullshit. How would she know this is going to happen? Two chicks. You know this dude?
Yes.
How do you know him?
Manuel brought him to help with some work randomly.
Mm-hmm. And what did he do?
Whatever, just helping stuff in the houses.
How long before your wife's murder?
It's been a while.
Mm-hmm. So Brain surgeon, Mr. Trevino, reaches out to him and says, hey, this is the deal, dude. John's going to pay me $9,000 to kill his wife because he wants to keep the kids. And I need 2 drivers, and I want to see if you'll do it with me. No shit. So we bring him in. He doesn't necessarily want to talk. The problem is he get caught up in a conspiracy to commit murder if there's any chance he has anything to do with it. So he lays out this whole story. I mean, everything. Planning what was going on, why it was bothering him, why he wasn't going to do it. All this shit. He lays everything out. So it's getting interesting. Now we got 3 people saying the same thing. You know him? Juan Salazar.
No, I do not know about that.
Another buddy, right? Mr. Trevino's got all kinds of buddies. Guess what he does with him? He goes to him and says, hey, dude, this is the deal. My boss is paying me 15 grand to whack his wife so he can keep the kids, and I need a driver. Would you be interested in doing it? Shit you not. Same thing. He comes in, he gives an affidavit, a statement, he swears to it. Now we got 1, 2, 3, 4 people saying the same exact shit. Boom. You know him?
Doesn't seem familiar.
Guess what he has to say?
Who is that person?
One of your boy's friends. I'm sorry, is that his brother? No, that's his brother.
His brother.
Yep. And guess what his brother said?
Which brother?
His brother. Mr. Trevino's brother. You know he had a brother?
I know he have siblings, but that picture does not look any familiar at all to me.
Well, guess what he says? He steps up because he gets in a bind and he's getting ready to go down on another deal and he wants to help himself out. So he reaches out and says, hey, you know that murder that Rowlett was working? Yeah. Guess what? My brother approached me. He offered me a gig to do that murder with him. We were going to get paid, I think he said he was going to get paid $4,000. I knew about everything about it. We were going to get 2 cars. We're going to get dropped off. We're going to do the hits. We're going to wipe it all out for John, his boss, because he wanted custody of the kids. But at the last minute, he cut me out because A, he wanted all the money, and B, because he made a statement that if there's any kids in the freaking house, he was going to kill them too. And he says that Trevino told him, if you kill any of the kids, then we're not going to get the money. And so Trevino, he says that his brother cut him out because he knew that he's kind of a hothead, and then if there was kids there and he was going to go down for it, that he would kill them. So he said, no, you can't do anything. I'm just going to take care of it. What are we up to now? 5, 6, something like that? You know him?
His face does not look very familiar to me.
Guess who
What's
he is?
his name?
We're going to ask all the complicated questions. David Arredondo. Oh, I think I might have these 2 pictures mixed up.
David Arredondo, I know that is Mario's brother.
Mm-hmm.
I know him, but his picture seems very I think it's the first time I see that person. But
So David says that, and then this guy, let me swing that back around. He comes forward. Oh, and you're probably wondering, how do we come up with all these names?
what do you mean?
I mean, how are we getting all these people that are coming forward and getting information from them? I mean, they're kind of gangbanger types. It's not like they're going to just jump out there and...
What's your job?
Well, yeah, but guess who makes it really easy? Mr. Dumbass. Because guess what he does? He's got an app on his phone to record all the conversations.
The detective confronts John with the multitude of witnesses who attested to the same story, which proves John's guilt. This confrontation is intended to intimidate John into confessing the truth about what went down on November 13th, 2015.
I told you about this app because I use this app for my clients.
I bet you know how to turn it on and turn it off, don't you?
What do you mean?
I mean that every phone call you make, do you record it or just the ones that you want to?
It's recording all of them, and just when I finish usually the conversation, I just delete it.
Mm-hmm. Do you think he does that, or do you think he backs it up to the cloud? What would you think? I think he's a dumbass.
I would say,
You already know the answer. He backs it up to the cloud. So every phone call that he's ever made, outgoing and incoming, is backed up to the cloud. Well, because of what I do, pretty good at what I do, right?
back in the cloud.
Oh yeah. Do you think Rowlett thought about that shit? Nope. But you think I did? Basically, he tossed his phone the day after we left shit. It's all in the cloud. Guess who has all that? All these conversations. How do I know about these people? How do I know about the guns? How do I know about all this shit? Because dumbass recorded conversations with you. Recorded. A week ago, I started working this case. Within 24 hours, it was pretty much done. Presented the facts to a grand jury on Tuesday. Not for arrest, but for indictment. I'll explain that.
For what?
Indictment. I'll come back to it.
Okay.
Brother, you know what he said? Dude comes up, getting paid $9,000 to do a hit. He needs a driver. He'll pay him $4,000. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is that 6 or 7? I lose track.
I don't think it really matters.
Doesn't. When I say he's a dumbass, I'm dead on. Okay, but I want to keep going. I want to
Sure.
prove that I actually know what I'm doing. Right? Then, of course, if you're going to shoot someone, all right, and you're smart enough to get rid of the clothes in the gun, all right, you should also get rid of the backpack that the clothes in the gun are put in. Because when you shoot someone, even though you don't see it, there's something called GSR, gunshot residue, and there's blood splatter because it's high speed. When you hit something, and even though you can't see, you watch CSI, Miami, any of those shows?
Sometimes I've seen that.
So when you shoot someone at close range, the splatter comes back at you. And if you're wearing a black hoodie when you do it, all right, you're going to have the victim's blood on you. Now, if you get rid of the black hoodie and the black pants and the black tennis shoes that you're wearing, it can be pretty good, right? Because you can just get rid of it. But the problem is if you put all that shit along with the gun that has blood on it into this backpack. Do you know what the Lacard exchange principle is? That's fascinating. Lacard is this French scientist. He's an absolute genius, right? He comes up with this theory back in 1823. Same year, mind you, that the Texas Rangers came to be. And the Lacard exchange principle is fascinating. It's that when two objects touch, this table and that phone, there is an exchange. Part of that table goes onto this phone, and part of this phone goes onto that table.
That makes sense, yes.
Smart dude. French scientists, don't screw with the French, right? They're smart. So Lacard exchange principle, if you take the bloody black hooded sweatshirt and the black pants that you're wearing and the gun that you shot this person with and you stick it all in that backpack, right? And then you take out that stuff and you take the gun, you put little pieces and you dump it in one spot and you take the clothes and you dump it, let's say, at a job site, right? In a garbage can. You're pretty smart for doing that, right? But if you put all that shit in this backpack because of the Lacard exchange principle, then there's a transfer of evidence. So where do you think this backpack was found?
I'm trying to see the around what.
It was found in James's motel room. Okay? And who do you think James said this backpack belonged to? Jesus.
Yes.
Right? And who do you think that all of these other knuckleheads, 7, said this backpack belonged to?
From where it's going, I'm guessing his
Jesus. He's the dumbass, right? And what do you think they said that Jesus always kept in that backpack? His 40 gat. You know what gat is?
No, sir.
Gun. His pistol.
Okay. How did you call it?
A gat? You never heard that? It's like gangster shit, man. Gangster.
I'm
Come
not
on.
in any gangster stuff.
Mr. Trevino, he wants to be a gangster. His problem is he's not. He's in kind of a bind right now, and I'll explain that to you. He's got this thing. He likes to tell people that he's part of Mexican gangs that work for drug cartels, but he's really not. It's not a big deal when you do that, but when you do it and you're in jail, it's not so good. Because those people don't like people saying that they're them. And
Yes.
you know, they're in a Mexican drug cartel gang for a reason, right? And if you're not, you're saying that shit, they take that stuff personal. Anyway, back to Mr. Trevino's backpack, which is found in James's motel room. Take that out. Rowlett PD does a good job and they secure that, but guess what they don't do? What would you think?
That exchange of...
The card exchange principle, right? But the Ranger, smart son of a bitch I am, I looked at that and I said, did y'all do GSR on it? Did y'all swab it? Did you do DNA? Did you do S strand? Did you do Y strand? Did you do all the different strands that you could think of? All these high molecular $50,000 tests. What are you talking about? Right? Okay, but hey, I'm the man. Governor picks up the phone for a reason, so I go down there and I see that picture. And what do you think the first thing that I do is?
Tell them to do all the stuff, I guess.
Tell them my ass. Takes me an hour.
I'm
Takes
sorry.
me an hour. I drive over there. By the time I'm done drinking my double latte from Starbucks, I got that shit done. They're calling me up. And guess whose DNA is in the CODIS database? You know what CODIS is?
No.
Combined DNA Indexing System. It means if you're a shithead and you get arrested, they take your DNA. They run a swab of your mouth and it goes in this giant computer base. Okay?
Mhm.
That's so when you get out of jail, if a shithead commits a crime and he leaves his DNA at a scene, all the police got to do is test it and they have a hit. All right? Because he's a knucklehead and he's been to prison, we keep his DNA because we know he's going to commit more crimes. So as soon as I run this, what do you think I get?
I hate to just...
Not 1, 3.
I mean, if you get 1 or 3, I mean, if it's his backpack, then isn't
His DNA would be in
should
it,
be
right?
Yeah.
What about his sweatshirt that was in there, right? He wears it, so his DNA's on it, and it's going to be inside the backpack. Do you think your wife ever walked over and bled on that? I mean, did you ever see your wife walk over to Mr. Trevino's backpack and cut her wrist and
No.
bleed inside of
No,
it?
of course not.
No, she wouldn't do that. That'd be silly, wouldn't it?
Of course.
Well, absolutely, and that's why I've concluded that the blood that is inside here, whose DNA matched to your wife, came from the gun in the sweatshirt. The gun that he used to kill her and the sweatshirt that he was wearing when he did it.
Wow.
The card exchange principle. Bloody interior of backpack with GSR gunshot residue, his DNA on it, 7 different people saying that it's his backpack, GSR from the gun, and your wife's blood inside that backpack. What would you conclude from that?
But he's guilty.
Hell yeah, I did it. Some bitch did it. Shot your wife. Problem is, we can stop right there, right? End the show. We got him. 7 people saying that you hired him to kill your wife. If it was 1, 2, 3, 7. Can't ignore that. But there's more people involved. There's got to be more people involved. This backpack, right? The stories. Your cell phone, okay? Another piece of advice. If you're going to tell someone to go kill someone else, all right, tell them to turn off their cell phone and wrap it in aluminum foil. No shit, right? Why? Because do you have to be on your cell phone for it to be tracked?
What do you mean?
I mean,
No, I didn't understand your question or your statement.
if you have a cell phone, do you have to be talking on it for me, the police, big brother, to know where you are?
I don't think so.
Nope.
Probably you can track it at any time without me being on it.
Unless it's wrapped in aluminum foil.
Okay.
Pretty smart. That's the only thing that'll cut the signal off from the tower. But when that, you look at your phone, you see the bars, the tower bars, you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Like a 1, 2, 3. We use those, tower strength, signal strength, with a trajectory from the tower. In other words, if you're standing right here and the tower is right here, you're an engineer, you went to 2 extra years after high school, right? To be a civil engineer,
Mm-hmm.
okay? then you know about trajectory and angles.
Yes.
Based on that signal
Can
strength.
pinpoint your location.
Exactly. And so you know what this does? It pinpoints. Can I call him dumbass? Is that okay? Is that all right with you? Because he is.
The detective is finding some amusement in this case. Given his experience, this might have been one of the easiest cases for him to solve due to the numerous mistakes Jesus made. It can be assumed that he asked these questions to show John his knowledge of the case. John blindly replies, completely missing the grave mistakes he's making as the conversation progresses.
It pinpoints dumbass's signal at James's apartment, motel, there's a difference. Picking him up and then driving. Can you show me where your house is in there? Yep, that's it. You know why that X is there? Because it picks him up driving to your house and at really pretty much the exact time that we feel like your wife was murdered, within a minute and a half to 3 minutes of her getting home, because you just barely beat her there. His phone is tinging at your house. And then his phone goes all the way back towards, where's this? Oh, right here. And it stays there for just a little bit. And then it goes to, where's that Home Depot at? There.
This is where he came and met me.
Yep. Right after he killed your wife. So, if I know that he's at James's motel, what do you think that makes me to believe about James?
That he is an accomplice somehow.
Bingo!
The detective needs no help to solve this case, let alone from John. Here, the detective's goal is to use John's own words against him to hold him accountable. And unfortunately for John, he falls right into the detective's trap. However, he only realizes the grave mistake he made a while after, and he attempts to take it back by adding the word somehow. This is to indicate that he isn't exactly sure, but is simply using his common sense. In his attempt to defend his words, John only ends up incriminating himself further.
James, what do you think about him?
As I said, him, I didn't really have any relationship or anything with him outside of work.
Let me tell you about him. Okay?
I heard that he was a sex offender after the fact that didn't know all the stuff.
He's not a big, hard-time criminal. He was messing around with a girl who was 16 when he was 19. It was consensual. Other than that, he's got no criminal history. Definitely not a killer. Definitely not the dude that you want to drive. Okay? Someone who doesn't do very well in jail because he doesn't want to be here. He's very uncomfortable with it. And as soon as he finds out that Mr. Trevino there, who now has hits out, right, because he's saying
what?
People want to hurt him because he's not really in this gang that he claims to be in.
Oh.
So he wants to get out, all right? So as soon as he finds out that he is implicating him in this murder, then he decides to come forward. And he comes forward and he says that about 3 weeks before your wife's murder, he meets with him. He offers him a job to drive because you're going to pay him money to kill your wife because you don't want to lose custody of the kids. And he comes to work for you. I'm just telling you, do you want to know? I figure you want to know.
I do want to know.
I would want to know. I would want to know.
How I'm going to lose custody of my kids when I have a very good relationship with my...
Dude, whatever. I'm just telling you. It's not a question and answer time. I'm not asking you questions. I'm just telling you. I want to tell you what's out there, okay? So as soon as he finds out that he's given him up on this murder, he comes in and he sits down and he tells the whole story about how he approached him 3 weeks ago because you were going to pay him money to kill your wife so you could keep custody of the kids, and he's going to get paid $1,000 to be the driver. Then he goes into conversation about, oh, by the way, this was all, recorded and videoed and everything like that, and he gives an affidavit statement, and he's met with the district attorney and all that other stuff. So then he sits down and he gives a statement. And in that statement, he specifically talks about how he was part of a conversation between you and him talking about how this was going to go down and how you three went into a room after the murder and discussed how everyone needed to shut up and keep quiet the day after the murder. But let's go forward a little bit. He also says that he was a big sissy and he wouldn't just do it. He kept dragging it out. He says that you got really, really mad about that and that you told Mr. Trevino that you need to get your shit together and knock it out because you haven't done anything to plan for the wedding. You haven't gotten a tuxedo, and now your mom's going to be coming, and he needs to get this shit done. Then he says, one-on-one, right, that while you guys are out at a dump, that you have a conversation with him, and you're talking about the murder, and is he really going to do it? And he says, no, I think he's a big sissy. And then you turn around and say, well, he was supposed to do another job for me, my ex-wife down in Georgia. Would you do a hit for $15,000? And he says, well, that's not really my deal. I don't really do that. Because he's not really a hitter. So someone who's going to do a murder shouldn't hire someone who is afraid of the sight of blood, right, to do it. And they shouldn't hire someone who's not really a shithead. He's not really a shithead. He's a pretty legitimate dude. He just has some issues and he did something really, really stupid. You shouldn't bring him along for the ride, and then you shouldn't have a conversation with him about it. Now, you can blow off everything that he said, and you can blow off everything that he said, but the deal is these two have been separated, and they were both interviewed, and they both said exactly the same thing. All right?
Good deal. I mean, you're telling me that, you're telling me that basically admitting that I hired him to do the murder. That's what you're telling me.
Am I telling you to admit that? No, I already know that you did that. I'm giving you an opportunity to tell the truth and come forward and to ask for some type of consideration for doing the right thing and for helping me to make sure that this guy goes to death row. That's what I'm talking about. There's not a question of if you did this or you didn't do that. I already know the answer to it. I already know that you hired him. I know that he drove. I know that he's an idiot. I know that he pulled the trigger. Okay? I already know those things. It's not a question, all right? I'm not asking you questions. Did you do that? I already know the answer to that. The question is, what do you want to do? If you want your attorney, then we'll end it right now. That's your choice. If you want to provide information and try to help yourself out, then we can do that too. It's up to you.
Despite the detective's advice to confess, John continued to deny his involvement. As a consequence of this refusal, Jesus Trevino and John Makris were both found guilty of capital murder of Laura Grillo and received life sentences without the possibility of parole. James Villada, who agreed to testify against both John Makris and Jesus Trevino, was granted a sentence of 25 years as part of a plea deal. If you think this case of a murderous husband was shocking, you need to watch the case of David Tranez.